So they're very serious about figuring out a way to get everybody off the streets so they can eradicate, get rid of the violence, the looters, the rioters that we've seen for the last 3 nights.
And that's like Miss Gibson that we talked to on Lake Street that Christiane interviewed. You know, she called the police. She didn't get through. And then when she got through, she said it would be 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely terrifying, right? And she's 60 and she lives alone. And her resource was, I'm going to turn to God and I hope I make it through the night. So it's tough because you see Frank and Jacob from Tulsa, who seem like reasonable, good-hearted men, and they're going out of their way to break the law starting in 1 minute. And the governor says, Frank and Jacob, you're part of the problem, regardless of how noble your cause is, because if you're out there and even though you're guys that claim to have tried to stop the looting last night and the fires, you're actually in the way. I've got to arrest you to get to the guy who I think is the anarchist. And that's a tough situation.
We should point out right now, Pat, the curfew is in effect. 8 o'clock.
And so now we see people do appear to be dispersing. The one thing that's different from last night is that there were huge crowds that we saw last night. We see far fewer people on the streets, as if many people are observing, many protesters are observing. These have been peaceful protesters, as we see throughout the day. We don't know what happens when the sun goes down, but that's the warnings that we've had repeatedly from our state government.
I didn't have time to talk to some folks. I just kind of ran out of time coming back in here, but I wanted to talk to someone about tactics and what they do, because I thought it would make more sense to attack this thing in the daylight, and you've got these long May days. You know, the sun, it'll still be dusk 90 minutes from now, and I wonder if they use that to their advantage. And I didn't queue up this video either, but Pat, last night at 8 o'clock, we got the warnings, and this was at the 3rd precinct, the burned down 3rd precinct that was abandoned on Thursday night, where we saw the line of state troopers and other law enforcement, and they gave the warning, curfew is now under effect with the bullhorn, curfew is now under effect, and they gave it several times, and they shot a little bit of tear gas, and people just stood in their face and taunted them and screamed at them and swore at them. And that was it. It was just a standoff. There wasn't arrest. There wasn't anything. It was an attempt to get them to move. So we'll kind of be looking for those things tonight, whether we see this, whether you see troops en masse. But it's tough.
Yeah. You know what, Pat? Why don't you hold on and hang out with us? We're going to check in with the reporters that we have on the ground. We have Christiane Cordero, who is right there with protesters who do not seem to be leaving in the 8 o'clock. It's 2 minutes after 8, Christiane.
This is the people who are here and staying out of defiance, whether it's that they believe in the movement to their core and their interpretation of that is that they must not cooperate, or they're here to cause some violence. Time will tell, as we know, right? But this was where so much of that violence was focused just 24 hours ago. I have to say it was very eerie hearing what is probably about 500 plus phones go off at the same exact time saying emergency order, curfew is in effect in 5 minutes, and almost instantly everyone sat down, and that was their message: is we're standing up for ourselves by sitting down. We've tried to find some understanding on what it is that some people are here to do other than cause violence. Some people say that in my last interview from just a few minutes ago, right, that they are trying to help those who are getting hurt, that they believe the system is so flawed that somebody will get hurt tonight, and that they are here to provide whatever kind of eye wash or whatever they need. But other than that, Amelia, this is what we're looking at right now, just after 8 p.m.
Yeah, I get. It'll be interesting to see, because there's certainly conviction with them. A lot of people like to call me a lot of bad names and stuff on Twitter, but their point, and I think it's good that we get a bunch of different viewpoints, is, hey, you know what? I don't care. Looting is bad, but police killing civilians is worse. And it's just a different take on this. And I think a lot of people think that, and you certainly saw these faith leaders think that. But I just wonder if 4 days of looting or 5 nights of looting maybe makes you put a different spin on things and says, how do we attack the other problem, which is white officers killing black men? Because you want to stop both problems.
You do, and it's such an impossible time that we live in right now to stop both problems without something or someone getting hurt in a really devastating way, because social media has made things move so quickly, and yet our system is not equipped to make things move that quickly. So you have that balance here. You've heard people say, we're not going to stop until there's justice. We don't care about all the damage and destruction. Well, that simply isn't sustainable, right? So the question is when, like you alluded to, Frank, like when is this going to escalate to a level, and what will that look like? Because I don't really know what that will look like. And I heard Pat Kessler say earlier that we're not going to really know until we know.
Right. Hey, Christian, so I see a lot of people sitting down behind you. Are there people sitting, taking the microphone going, we're staying here all night and link arms and F the police, or are they just kind of waiting and hanging out?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the thought on how they approach the curfew?
They're definitely approaching it with defiance. They said something to in the start of the curfew to the effect of that we are staying, and there has been a shift of tone, right? The people who are staying are infuriated. That's really what it is. Whether you're here to cause violence or not is a whole nother story, but we saw so many more people throughout the day who are whether it's they're trying to reach understanding, or they believe that they have their own guilt and they haven't done enough as a member of this community to back the black and brown communities. But this crowd is different. This crowd is definitely here to rally. They feel like they're here to stay in it for the long haul.
What are they chanting right now behind you? Can you hear?
I don't know. I have no idea.
No, I just saw them scream, waving arms. I just wondered. So, all right. Well, we'll give you a chance to talk to some other folks. We're going to go chat with Jeff Wagner right now. So, Christian, thank you. Be careful. We'll be checking with you through the course of the evening.